hello, Sanbonani Matike Masamahle. Welcome and happy holidays. I am your girl, Mrs. Independent, aka I am not a lawyer. I just want to thank you so much for your support. We are on our road to 3,000. Let's hit that mark by end of Jan. So our nephews, Omakelwane, our extended family, if you haven't yet subscribed and you're coming back on this channel for more, kindly subscribe. Slinde wena, we are waiting for you to become part of this family. So yeah, one last request, please don't skip the ads. They are helping this channel financially. To business of the day, let's hear the legal experts. What are they saying about Zungu good stories, that good story that he told, and everyone was like, what a damning information. He put all 5 IQs in one place. He put all 5 IQs alone a hostel, but not at the house of where the incident occurred. Okay, let's take a listen.
Around 9 p.m. on the very same day, I noticed Moses Sidia, Mafika, open bracket, Sandy Sontanzi, close bracket, and Nkani, open bracket, Sifiso Kuhle, Zungu, Ntuli, walking after each other to Kwabeni's bedroom, coming from outside. I stood up and followed them as I was suspicious of the manner in which they entered the house. I could see there was something wrong. I found Kwabeni in the bedroom as I was approaching the bedroom. I could hear Kwabeni saying, "There comes Babomngane," and someone switched off the light. I saw Musi giving Kwabeni a 38 special firearm and Nkani giving Kwabeni a 9mm firearm. I asked them why they are having firearms on their hands and asked them where they are coming from. No one responded. I then took the 38 special firearm from Kwabeni's hand and looked at it. I asked Kwabeni if it was not the same firearm which he has said he threw away in the river after shooting Sinako with it.
And before we read the rest of the paragraph, I have a question there regarding the line which says, I saw Mose giving Kwabeni a 38 special firearm.
Look at the judge's face. He just couldn't believe, because now the reality has set in. That euphoria of Zungu telling a good story, Zungu bringing all 5 accused in one place and giving damning information. You can see through the character of this star witness. But let's continue listening.
Evidence that was given by Constable Zungu, we saw during the week, that was quite damning, wasn't it? Placing all 5 accused at the hostel in Vosloorus. But was it convincing enough? Because there was quite a bit of scrutiny that came out of that.
And I think the scrutiny was absolutely justified. If one looks at the fact that he was a police officer, and here he is in the presence of people that have perpetrated a crime. He says, of course, there was no wrongdoing at the time, but they came back with guns and they seemed very nervous. So at the very least, his suspicions were aroused at that time about their conduct. So one would have expected him to have acted upon that, especially as a police officer, keeping in mind that a police officer has a legal duty to act positively. They have to act because there's a legal duty, and this legal duty enables us to say, well, listen, if I'm a party to proceedings, I should do something about that. And in this instance, he didn't do it. He sat on the information, he kept it. There was a period of time where he didn't disclose it, and then only at the last minute he decided to come forward. So I think the scrutiny is justified. I think at the end of the day, the court would carefully look at his credibility, and these things will definitely count against that. The fact that I failed to make a disclosure when I should have made disclosure definitely reflects poorly on my credibility. And one would only be able to see later on to what extent does this carry weight, because the accused have denied this meeting. They've denied being there. So then you have to ask yourself, on what basis will this evidence really help the state at the end of the day? Or is it just another proverbial nail in the coffin? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the reason that it's been labelled as hogwash by one of the defence attorneys, saying there actually isn't any actual evidence that will point to all 5 accused being at that particular hostel in Vosloorus. And as you say, it really just puts under the spotlight the argument that is being put forward by the state and whether it will hold water in the coming days.
Yeah, I think one has to remind oneself of the fact that when a court considers evidence, the court must look at the totality of the evidence. The court should not nitpick and shouldn't consider evidence in a piecemeal fashion. And for that reason, you would expect the judge, when he considers this matter, to look at all the evidence and then say, well, listen, if I look at the totality of the evidence, was there a case that the accused had to respond to? Was there a case that they had to come forward and say, well, listen, you now have to give a version to this because the state has made a prima facie case. So maybe one should be cautious to just outright say, well, listen, I don't know what the value of this is going to be, in light of the fact that he does have some difficulties and he had some difficulties explaining his conduct. But I think the reality is, at the end of the day, cumulatively, with all the other evidence which has been adduced, it might be enough to say, well, listen, this accused has to go into the witness box and testify.
Let's bring in Alton Hart at this stage. Alton, a very good afternoon to you. Let's speak about the defence in this regard and really just the arguments that they would have put forward here. Did they have they were cut out for them, or was it pretty straightforward based on what the state had put forward here?
Then obviously the manner in which the state actually brought this witness to the fore, for me, that was questionable, the state's behavior. Because as I said previously, a prosecutor's job is not to every person that steps into the accused box to prove that that person is guilty, but surely to make justice prevail. And if they had this witness in their arsenal from the get-go, they knew that they're going to use this witness, because this witness made a statement around about late 2018, early 2019, so they knew this witness existed. Why not make it available to the defense to say, listen, yeah, we've got this guy that will come and testify 1, 2, 3 against your clients. What is your take on this? Now the defense has to adjust their strategy as the trial, because the state comes up with these surprise witnesses. Now, for me, people were labeling Zungu's evidence as damning evidence against the witnesses, against the accused. But if the accused come and say, but listen, yeah, we never met this guy, this meeting never took place, will their testimony also be seen as damning to say that the witness has lied? And then one asks now, what is it in there for the witness to lie? Yes, there's a lot of motive for him in it to lie, because why does he go 2014 to 2018, give 2019, to come up with such a nice story that places all these witnesses? And when he was questioned about it on the photos that was shown, to say that it's not you, that somebody else, he could not give proper answers. He was just saying, it was me. If you say it wasn't me, then you cannot tell me you were not there. But that was not good enough for me. So this witness, as much as it looks like it's damning, there should be credibility, because he was a police officer. He knew that crimes were committed. He neglected his normal duty as a police officer, not to say to investigate, but to report. Instead of, he condoned what he saw in front of them, sit on the information for another 4 years. Can we really trust the person? Or is this that person that will only give evidence when it suits him? We don't know what he was promised. Maybe a rank, something like that. And we need to be optimistic and objective at looking at him. And then his own nephew, he saw his nephew, and he knew that his nephew committed a crime with a 38 special revolver that he has knowledge of. He never reported it. He never did anything about it. So can we trust this witness? That for me is the big issue. And the judge said, yeah, he shouldn't give incriminating evidence against him. But if you look at that, and I want to see how the judge will look at this witness evidence per se on credibility, reliability, and how much weight, as my colleague has already said, the judge will attach to this evidence. Because if there's little to no evidence attached or weight attached to this evidence, then the state's case is just another state's case that's going haywire sideways.
Yeah, and I mean, that's quite worrying, Marius, because one would then look at what Alton has just broken down there in terms of the credibility of this particular witness and think, how does the state then proceed after this damning testimony and the evidence or lack thereof that came out this week?
Yeah, the interesting thing is the defense should never be trialed by ambush. And to sit on evidence, and Alton is 100% correct, to sit on evidence since 2019, and you decide purposefully, I'm not disclosing this, and now at the 11th hour, I try and sneak it in, really stinks. There's no other word to describe it. And the court at the end of the day would have to weigh this evidence with all the other evidence that the state has adduced. But, that will not be seen in isolation. Also, if the accused decides to come and testify, or if the accused decides not to testify, the court will have to take that into consideration. And the court, once he's had all the evidence adduced, he will then be in a position to say, well, wait a minute. This witness evidence was of no value and it didn't take the matter any further. Or no, this person had so many question marks over his evidence, and there are so many things that simply do not add up that we can't attach the necessary weight to it, so I reject his evidence. But that will only know down the line. It's perhaps too early now to say, but I 100% agree with Alton in his assessment.
Yeah, and I mean, with that questionable evidence, Alton, the important part around the nephew and the hiding of that particular gun or weapon, I mean, surely that is bound to come back and bite the constable in the you-know-what when it comes to the credibility of his statements there, only because of the criminal nature of the acts of his nephew here.
No, indeed so. But now what I saw, and that was worrying for me when I saw that, and I don't want to take on the judge and how he actually manages the trial, because he's supposed to manage the trial. But in doing so, he should not enter the arena. And that is clear from that case that he was reading in court out loud to people. He read paragraph 3 of that case for the people, but not paragraph 4, where it says you manage the case, but you should not enter the arena. And when it came to this witness, because he already testified and said he saw these accused. So he opened that door, he dropped that shield for the defense to actually now speak about his choosing and not choosing when to produce evidence. And the judge sort of shut that door for the defense to actually take him on and to say, listen here, but we cannot trust you. And he was supposed to leave that to go so that he can actually see if there is a guy that's willing to go as far as incriminating himself, then it knows, then you can say, this guy wasn't even afraid to incriminate himself, to actually make sure the court is placed in the best position with the evidence. The judge showed that shut that door with section 203 of the, which it gives that a person or a witness that protection. But once you've testified about something, you're supposed to leave the defense, because with cross-examination, the rules is not that tight, to allow them to actually cross-examine why he chose to report on the SENZO MEYIWA issues, but not on the nephew's other shooting of Sanaka. And for me, that was worrying what the judge did there. I don't want to speak about the judge manages his case, but also he must manage it both fairly for both parties. And when the state was doing things with these surprise witnesses, and even the second cell phone analyst that is now on the 99th hour called him witness only given to the defense on Monday, he's not chastising the state for their behavior. But when the defense just sort of steers in the wrong direction, he's quick to say to Mr. Mnisi, Mr. Ramasupili, Mr. Ngumalo, Advocate Mshololo, he's quickly to chastise them. Chastising must happen across the board. And that for me was one of the worrying things, sitting as a legal practitioner, watching what is happening, and then you ask yourself, is these 5 accused really going to get justice? And it's said that we'll also now see that this might run down to a situation where people might say, we need to now ask this judge to recuse himself because of entering into the arena when it doesn't suit or need him. And Zungu's evidence, I don't trust that guy. I will not lie. I will not, people can say I'm biased, but I don't trust him. I don't trust his evidence. His evidence to me, even if it's premature, I say it should not have any bearing on this trial.
Yeah, and that's going to be an important point, isn't it, Marius? The weighing of this evidence or bearing of it in the trial, but also the complexities of the Section 203 of the Criminal Procedure Act, and it being in accordance with it incriminating him at all.
100% correct. Down the line, we might find that cumulatively, if there are so many notches in this trial of the judge doing X, Y, and Z, well, then you might reach the stage where you say, I have the judge recuse himself. But you'd have to go quite far before you get to a stage where you say, listen, judge, I now think you've become a party to the proceedings. And as an attorney, it's a really sensitive thing to raise. You do raise it. You do it. You sometimes do it in chambers. And you say to a judge in chambers, judge, this is where we're going. But you only do that as a last resort, because you can imagine if the judge says no, now you've clearly shown your cards. Now you've clearly indicated where your head stands in respect of the judge. And that doesn't bode well for your client, because there's something to be said. At the end of the day, you want to have the atmosphere of the trial in your favor. You want to conduct the trial in such a way that it's to the benefit of your client. You don't want to have your own show, and at the end of the day, you're prejudicing your client. So it's a delicate balance that one has to proceed with.
Did you ask Constable Zungu if he reported this matter to the police because he was being pointed out by the firearm by the person whom he was able to identify as Nkazimulo Ntoshi?
My lord, so when this incident happened, he did phone me then on the 18th to inform me of such, because it was just a day after he brought his father to our office for the obtaining of this father's statement. And I asked him then, my lord, I advised him to go and open a case at the local police station, since he knows the suspects, so that the matter can be investigated. Yes, that's how it went, my lord. And I said, should he have challenges or need further assistance, he can then advise me accordingly.
Do you know if the case, do you know if he eventually opened the case as per your advice?
No, I don't know that, my lord.
There you have it. You heard the legal analyst their take on this matter, on specifically Zungu testimony and credibility, integrity and reliability. You heard what their take on, and they say it stinks right now. But we'll take it from the judge. What is he going to rule on about this evidence? Until the next video, T-Gamers, please keep on subscribing, liking, sharing the video, and not skipping the ads. Thank you so much. Bye.